But in a situation where you find that a person look like the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that.
All right, thank you for staying with us. Now, let's start with the Daily Trust newspaper. The stories are quite interesting. The first one at the top, below the nameplate there, U.S. removes Nigeria from religious violators list. And I'll ask, why was Nigeria on the list in the first place? 4 killed, others trapped in fresh Lagos building collapse, and that's on page 4. The lead story on Daily Trust says 57 killed in Sokoto in 2 days, with the rider Tambuwal visits communities, assures support. 1 killed, 30 kidnapped in fresh attack in Niger. Cameroonian rebels kill monarch, others in Taraba. That's an invasion. Well, for details of that, pick a copy of the Daily Trust. It's on page 5. You would see also below the pictorial, by the way, the pictorial is showing you the burial, funeral prayers for the brother of Aliko Dangote, Sani Dangote, who was buried in Kano. And I would say that's that on the Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
Okay, let's take a look at some of the stories on the Nation newspaper this morning. On page 3, you'd find 4 die in another Lagos building collapse. And on page 6, IG, female cops could live with civilian spouses in barracks. Okay. On page 5 and page 7, NNPC gets 104 billion loan from Afrexim Bank. Cameroonian separatists kill 11 in Taraba community. And the Nation newspaper leads with a story about disquiet as petrol sells for 159 per litre at depot. Product raised by 11 naira per litre. Another rider states NNPC accuses operators of breaching pact. You'd also find on page 4, hashtag NSARS, leaked report has errors, says panel member. One of the riders says Lagos seeks restraints. Okunu calls for authentic report. These are some of the lead stories on the Nation newspaper.
All right, so let's take a look at this day. And on this day newspaper, the first story there, Buhari sends delegation to Sani Dangote's burial, says late entrepreneur was honest in business, exemplary. You'd also see Osibanjo mourns, declares deceased was part of their government. The lead story on this day, Nigerian households yet to recover from COVID-19 impact, says the World Bank. Those are the stories, major stories on this day newspaper this morning.
Okay, let's take a look at some stories on the Guardian newspaper. Right on page 2, you'd see APC crisis festers as police cordon off secretariat again. You'd also find on page 5, 11 killed, others missing as Cameroonians attack Taraba. You'd also see on page 12, 4 killed, 5 rescued in another collapsed building in Lagos. And the lead story there, uncertainties as tenure of NERC commissioners ends. One of the riders, government moves to renew NBET license amid 1.66 trillion naira debt. Another rider states why revocation of Disco's, Genco's licenses may be doubting. These are some of the stories on The Guardian.
All right, and on the Daily Sun newspaper, Abia suspends selection of judges, restarts process. You'd also see secessionist agitation threat to food security. That's according to Delta government. That's on page 27 of the Daily Sun. The lead story, security cordons off roads to APC headquarters. The rider says move meant to deny protesters access to party office. Other stories there below the pictorial. 5 burnt to death as tanker explodes on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. Senate orders probe into Lagos gas explosion. It was caused by ethylene gas. That's according to retailers. And then you would see below that at the very bottom, police arrest gun manufacturer, POS robbers in Imo State. These are some of the major stories that we could see on the Daily Sun newspaper.
Okay, as we've earlier told you, we have General Editor Daily Trust, Hamza Idris, to review some of the stories on NAR papers this morning. Welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Of interest to me is this very huge headline on the Daily Trust newspaper that states 57 killed in Sokoto in 2 days. And one of the writers states Cameroonian rebels kill monarch, others in Taraba. When you look at this story, some will say this is really absurd. Cameroonian rebels from another country coming in, to kill a monarch and others in Taraba. Isn't this absurd?
It is indeed. The matter was raised by the senator representing that senatorial zone in the Senate, because we are not even aware. So many things happening, bad things across the country. So unless somebody brought the matter, you realize that huge deficit somewhere will not even be noticed. We spoke with some security operatives. They said they are also waiting to get more details on what happened. But based on the account of the senator, the Amazonian rebels, from the northern part of Cameroon, they've been craving to have their own country. Now they are infringing into Nigerian territory. And it's not just restricted to Taraba. If you go out of Cross River, they are also there. They come into Nigerian territory, inflict pain on the people, and then go back. So it calls for urgent action by the federal government.
So, I've been meaning to ask, could it be that, some of these attacks that we see are not carried out by Nigerians?
Of course, it has been happening, not only in Taraba, as I said. If you go in the Boko Haram crisis, even the farmers' hardest crisis, there are elements from across the country, because we have a porous border. When you look at the landmass, it's such a huge area in Africa. If you look at the size of Nigeria, of course, Niger has bigger landmass, but sometimes I ask, why Nigeria? Is it because of our economic buoyancy, vis-a-vis our inability to police the borders, that you see criminals, coming in and going out with ease? So it's very sad.
Now, we always talk about how porous our borders are, but how much of effort really are we making in terms of policing the borders and making sure that, understood is quite large, but aren't we having tools that could be of help here in terms of technology and all of that?
We need to have that, but we are yet to get there. This is one. And then even the manpower, when you put the total number of immigration officials, customs, civil defense, these are paramilitary establishments that are meant to complement protecting Nigeria's integrity in terms of border policing. Yes, how many do we have? And that is it. So the number will not even match what is required to police identified borders. We have identified borders and we have unmanned borders where you just walk freely. Countless entry points that they are not even earmarked to be policed. So that is the problem. apart from increasing number of security operatives, we also need to deploy technology, that will help in policing the borders. Because unless we secure our borders, it will be very, very difficult for us to control crimes and criminality within the country.
Should we be maybe considering also deploying like soldiers, like troops, aside from customs, immigration? I understand that there's this joint border patrol that is, ongoing, where you have, all the security agencies coming together, But should we have more presence of, say, the military, at the borders because of this kind of experience?
The military is overstretched already. Out of the 36 states of the Federation, there is no single state that you don't have the military on the street. Are they supposed to be on the street?
Yeah, but here we are talking about territorial integrity of Nigeria. So having other people coming into Nigeria, that's an encroachment.
You see, I held them. I held the Nigerian military. They are doing so much in terms of, protecting internal insurrection and then encroachment by foreign mercenaries and foreign criminals. But in an ideal situation, you don't even supposed to see them on the streets. When we were young, if we see one soldier, you see dozens of youths following him, clapping, soldier, 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 because they were not common. They live in the barracks. You only see them, there is a problem, of a certain country, like what happened now in Taraba. So you see massive deployment of soldiers there. But now, probably they had the information through intelligence. But when we ask, say, okay, we are waiting for the full details of what is happening before we swing into action. And why? It's not religion of duty. They are overwhelmed. They are everywhere, fighting bandits. You even see soldiers fighting Yahoo boys now. A work of other agencies.
Cultists and all of that.
Yes, they're not supposed to do that. The police, as I said, civil defense, they're supposed to do that after receiving intelligence from DSS and other sister agencies. But the military, they are everywhere. Now, and that is why you see the response sometimes, slow.
So one will say that isn't the whole idea of creating bodies like the NCDC, to complement the Nigerian police, defeated, in this instance?
In Sokoto, on 2 days ago, they are all overstretched because we are not even talking about technology. We are not even talking about job creation. We are all overwhelmed talking about curtailing insecurity. They killed civil defense operative inside Sokoto 2 days ago, and they wanted to go to repel an invasion by armed robbers. This is what they said. They call them armed robbers, not even bandits. Because it is believed that bandits, the local government, so inside the town, they are robbers, but they are all criminals. Now they were going, and they were ambushed. The driver was shot about 3 times. He died. The vehicle veered off the street. This goes to tell you how devastating the whole situation. It's not that maybe the civil defense, immigration, customs, that they are not working. Many of them work 7 times a week. 7 times a week. They don't even rest. So that is the problem. It's a serious issue, and I think we just have to be doing the things simultaneously. As while trying to stop crimes and criminality, we should be making deliberate effort at the local, state, and national level to provide jobs Because when people have a lot to do,
Yes.
they will not have the mindset to start thinking about.
Yes, but with the picture that you've painted now, it's almost looking like Nigeria is a country that cannot protect itself from both internal insurrection and external aggression on both sides. So some will now say, does it mean that Nigeria is a failed state?
No, it's not a failed state, because when you look at the definition of a failed state means it collapsed. Nobody will talk. Even your money, nobody recognizes it. You understand? You don't have the international community lost confidence in you.
Yes.
And all that.
And other elements to that definition also has to do with the ability of the state to be able to protect its citizens from both internal insurrection and external aggression.
Yes, there is a need for us to up our game. As you can see, the Secretary of State, United States of America, will be here today. Nigeria is as part of, working together to sort out. So there is no country in the world that is crime-free. This is the truth. But it is the manner that you approach the challenges. I never knew that there was something like Boko Haram in Turkey until when I visited that country. It is the same thing even in the United States. You understand? You have terrorists everywhere. You have sundry criminals everywhere. But what is expected of a country is to have better people, more better people than criminals. But no country, in fact, some of these drive development. You understand? Because if you say you don't have criminals at all, then you begin to ask, okay, do we really need the police? Do we really need the military? So approach is what matters, and I strongly believe that our approach is slow. And then sometimes we tend to go back to the archaic method of containing some of these crimes, like the seizure of communication in Zamfara, in Sokoto. Because these figures that you saw, the people, when we interviewed them, they said they could not even call to say that we are under siege. Do we supposed to seize telecommunication now simply because we want to address activities of bandits? No. This was tried around 2013, 2014 in the Northeast, yes, when they seized telecommunication, no GSM at all. Even internet was problematic. They closed the airport. But the terrorists were having their way. So we should have learned from that it is not working. What is the essence of the BVN? I mean, even this, linking your
national identity number.
National identity number, the BVN for the banks, and all that. The essence of having those things is to synchronize everything about you, so that when you call, they will know from where you are calling. And even if you change your SIM, provided you are using the same phone, they should be able to track you. And that is the essence.
But it seems that effort,
it is not working.
have been defeated, because at a point in time,
yes,
they were saying there were criminals who actually go to withdraw money from the bank, and there was no tracking done and no record.
Even ransom are paid
through the bank.
So you can see the heinous act by terrorists. We call them terrorists. What is happening in Sokoto, Zamfara is terrorism. Okay. Whether they have been classified as terrorists or whatever. Yes, because they are just killing people mercilessly. Look at this. In 2 days. This, by the figures we were able to get as of last night.
All right. I want us to look at, this issue of building collapse again. We are seeing this as a story that is coming out of Lagos. This is just, I would say, maybe barely 2 weeks after the Ikoyi building collapse. And then also we had another tragic one 2 days ago, gas explosion, and now another building collapse. Do we need to declare a state of emergency, in the, construction
We just
sector?
have to be serious. No need to declare any emergency. But when you say declaration of emergency by words and without action, will that translate to safety? No. This is just they said two-story building collapsing. That goes to show the level of decadence in terms of supervision, in terms of following job specification, in terms of using the right materials in building. 2 days ago, Bode George, he said, in fact, he blamed the Lagos state government, even though he's an opposition politician. But in journalism, we differentiate between what politicians say from their position. You understand? Whether you are in ABGA, PDP, APC, or whatever, no, it is what you say. This man is not a young person. He said the whole of Ikoyi, it was a reclaimed land. And then in the 60s, the white men said buildings should not be more than 2-story. And it is the same in where the latest incident happened, Badagry. That you should not exceed 2-story building.
Because of the terrain.
Yeah, you reclaim. It was water before.
Oh.
Now, yes, it was water. You reclaim oceans because there is no land mass in Lagos. It's water everywhere. Now, for you to develop, for you to build houses, infrastructure like hospitals, fire service, hotels, schools, and all that, you need to reclaim the land, yes, by filling, the ocean.
But on the island, there are skyscrapers, built by the whites and the colonial masters that have been there for decades.
When you go to United Arab Emirates, like Dubai,
right,
you see skyscrapers
inside.
Yes, inside, in oceans and all that. But what did they do? Even the mainland bridges that we have in Lagos, they were all done by the expatriates, meaning the problem is not even about the high-rise buildings, but doing the right thing. We are not doing the right thing. If you get approval for 3-story building and they said you should use maybe 15 mm road, you see somebody using bamboo. Yes, if they say you should mix, if they say you should mix the sand, the gravel, maybe a certain quantity with 10 bags of cement, you see somebody putting 2 bags of cement. So how will you get it right?
Do you think that perhaps maybe the exchange rate has something to do with this?
It has
in
nothing
terms
to
of
do
the
with
high
this.
cost,
No.
of materials now, because largely we import most of the materials we use for
it
construction.
has nothing to do with this, because there are procedures for building, from the conceptualization
Yes, but
to the drawings. You understand?
Yes, but if you
and
look
then you
at
have
it-
you have quantity surveyors who will now tell you that okay, you will need so tons of sand, so tons of gravel, and then cement and all that, and this is the cost. Then, if it is a government building, you understand, you now give the contract, including the profit. But as you know, just the way we build our roads and all that, you see, if you earmark like 1 billion to do, let's say 10 kilometers of road, almost 6 billion, will be a subject of corruption.
So is there supposed to be like a body that is supposed to to oversee most of these buildings? That
of course, we have them. Like in Lagos, you have at the federal level, at the state level, you have all these agencies, the engineers, the Ministry of Works, Ministry of Environment. You have building development agencies and all that. But what are they doing? Cut. Everyone, some they even meet in hotel. They don't even go to the project site. They meet with the contractors or the owners of those buildings in hotels.
Terrible.
To agree on the percentage they will be given. And then they will just take it, and that is it. Instead of being at the site, maybe on daily basis or on weekly basis, to see how the engineers, the architects, you understand, how they are working, the laborers, the masons and all that.
Yeah.
So everyone, he gets his cut of the cake, and then he finds his way.
So I want us to look at this issue of cost of materials, again, because there is deliberate effort by both contractors and, the owners of the building to cut costs, by all means. And then here you are, maybe you have a building that you have budgeted, say, 50 million naira to construct. And then there's a change in the in the price of the materials that will be used for that construction, and then you find that you will now have to spend maybe 30% higher. Maybe you are now talking 80 million or 100 million because of the change in the price of materials and all of that. But still, you would find that the client or the contractor will insist that, well, it had mostly the client, like in the case of the Ikoyi building, that it has to be within this budget, and the building must, go on as planned, despite all of the changes that have been recorded in the price of materials and all of that. So that's why I'm bringing the issue of whether, this issue of, cost of materials is a major problem here.
Okay, two things here. For time immemorial, we have what we call variation. That is, if you're talking about government, which even individuals, they have the latitude to have that. In your house, your wife can say, look, what we budget weekly is no longer possible. So you just have to increase the budget, or you prioritize. But if you insist that, no, you have to reduce the quantity of palm oil or the maggi or the meat you use, you are going to pay that in another way. You will go to hospital. For your children, that is it. Yes, so in government, that is why they have variation. Meaning if a contract is awarded and then midway you have inflation and then cost of building materials, go up, you as the contractor, you have that support to now write and say, okay, I need variation. And then you have environment, meaning government can now, even if the what has been budgeted, has been exhausted or is not enough to complete the project, then they can write, if it is at the state level, to go to the State House of Assembly. If it is at the national level, to go to the National Assembly for environment, meaning, okay, you are now getting additional resources from somewhere to channel it to, that specific area so that you get it right. There is no shortcut to success anywhere in the world.
Right.
If you follow shortcut, honestly, you will pay. Why is the Ikoyi building now? Why is the person that, was behind the project? And then even the individuals, because they said over 75%, of the apartments there were subscribed. Not a single one of them was subscribed below $2.5 billion, 3-bedroom flat.
It's huge.
It was huge, but where is it now? Even the rubble is not there. In less than 1 month. So there is no shortcut. If they have done the right thing, that building, some people now took the photo of Cocoa House, which was built by late Awolo in Lagos. They put the photo side by side with the Ikoyi building. I said, okay, why is the Cocoa House still standing? Because it was done the right way. So we just have to do the right thing at every level for us to see the benefit of what we are doing. Once you say you will cut corners, honestly, you have to repeat it. But you have to pay a big price.
Okay, so before we wrap up, this segment of the program, let's take one more. Now, on the Daily Sun newspaper, we're seeing that the Senate orders probe into Lagos gas explosion. And some eyewitnesses and retailers are saying it was caused by acetylene gas.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not a scientist, but probably it has to do with maybe adulteration or something like that. You can see spike in explosions now, in fire incidents at homes and all that. Why? Because gas is now very expensive. So even kerosene is also very expensive, more expensive than petrol. So some people who want to get a profit, for instance, you see them buying 2 gallons of petrol, then mixing it with 1 gallon of kerosene to sell.
That's quite dangerous.
That is why you are having the preponderance of fire incidents.
You know,
all over.
For most times, I would say that some of the disasters that we experience in Nigeria are sort of man-made.
That is it.
Because
not some.
Nigerians have
More
this
than
attitude of
90%.
trying to cut corners and make it happen at all costs.
90%. When I was coming here,
you really mix palm oil.
when I was, is there anything that we don't adulterate? Even the water we take, the fruit we eat, we adulterate them, and then that is why you see people in hospital. When I was coming, I had somebody say it is ember month, that is why this tragedy. Can you imagine? Ember month. So simply because it is September, October, November. So these are months of calamities. I think it's where
the road safety actually debunked, that notion the other day here.
Because honestly, if you look at the stories, just like with the building construction thing that we are talking about just now, beneath, if you look into it deeply, you would find that someone is trying to cut corners. And that applies to virtually every other thing, that we do. And at the end of the day, it turns out to be a disaster, not only to the person that is behind it, but even also other innocent Nigerians.
Yeah, somebody can do a terrible thing that will endanger the lives of a whole family, a whole community, a whole state. Doesn't give a damn, provided it will be to his advantage. And that is why you see in most instances, at the end of the day, what goes round comes round. If you should change, you will also be shortchanged tomorrow. So we just have to be frank in our approach. We have to do things right. And then government should have a deliberate policy to mitigate some of these things. I wonder, why should kerosene be expensive? Why should cooking gas be expensive? When you look at the cubic tons of gas that we have in Nigeria. But people now resort to using charcoal. Our story yesterday, I think, was on tree felling. So you can see the multiplier effect of not getting things right.
Right.
Yes, if people cannot access gas, they say, okay, let's try kerosene. So kerosene is also expensive. Then they saw a window in adulterating kerosene by using petrol, so that they can, increase
quantity
the quantity.
Terrible.
And then elsewhere, people are just invading the shelter belts, the forest, to fell the trees in order to produce charcoal.
And there's climate change.
So we just have to get it right.
And again, what's the role of, ordinary Nigerians, aside from the need for government to actually do the needful in this? For instance, we are talking about petrol now. If you go to the filling stations, like one of the stories that we saw,
156, 164,
and so on, and one wonders whether is this a product of hoarding, or truly there's a problem at the depot.
Yes, we have problems at the depots weeks ago until when the NNPC said they will not increase the price. And then we did another investigation that at the depots, you know, you have private individuals who have the tanks to keep the product, which, you know, determines at what rate the petrol gets out of the depots. They accuse some agencies of collecting the remittances in dollars instead of in naira. And they said that was responsible for the, you know, increase in transporting the petrol and many other things. So the federal government had to caution those agencies that, look, collect these monies in naira so that there won't be this issue of conversion, you know, which will invariably increase the cost. And I think that was where we got some respite. Now, look at what is happening. So I think there should be deliberate effort. I keep saying this because it's very important. But when you have a deliberate policy and the enforcement agencies adhere to that, you will see a seamless transaction, right from, you know, importing the product, you know, storing it, then lifting it, transporting it, and then sharing it to various filling stations. So at the end of the day, you will get it right. By the time you allow Mr. A to do different thing, Mr. B to do another thing, you will keep having problems.
All right.
All right then. Well, thank you so much for coming on the program and sharing your thoughts with us on the show. We hope to have you again.
But in a situation where you find that a look like the same,
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
because I have said that